What is the strangest thing that has happened to you while being /out/? Stories welcome.
My friend and I were out hiking, and on our way back we came to a crossroads where 4 trails met. In this crossroads there was a group of older women who seemingly came out of nowhere. They stopped us to ask for directions back to the cabin. We asked a few times which trail they came in on, but they either dodged the question or ignored it. We both got a really weird vibe from this group. We assumed they meant the visitor center where you check in, so my friends told them there was a trail that goes up the hill behind them, but I interjected to say that the hill was a bit steeper than it looked, so be prepared to take some breaks to rest, or alternatively follow a flatter, but longer, trail through the woods. One of the ladies responded rather aggressively, "Thank you for honesty," as if we had passed some kind of test. After giving our directions we said goodbye and headed on our way. Not too long after we turned around to look at the crossroads where we met them. But it was empty, without any trace of them. For weeks afterwards we both had mild nightmares. Clearly, we encountered a coven in the woods. That's it. That's my shitty story.
Real gray aliens. You will not believe me. They were real. Several people I was who saw them. Camping in the woods. See very bright light. Creeps check what that is. It turned out to be a bright white disc, about 10 feet in diameter, silently rotating over a clearing with 4 greys milling about. It was absolutely fucking surreal. We saw them from about 50 yards, didn't dare come closer. Sneaked back to the camp, packed up and left. Too spooky. By girl, how the disc looked. Bright white light from below plus some slowly rotating yellow, red and orange lights that didn't give any lights. Didn't see the greys well, but they were close together, moving around a single spot.
Be hiking on a trail in the Smokies with 2 friends. Starts to rain, so we set up camp in a little clearing right next to the trail. Storm starts picking up, but we are cozy under a tarp cooking dinner. It is pretty dark out when we hear the slop 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 of muddy footsteps running down the trail. Turn on a flashlight to see who it is. Asian girl, completely naked except for her panties and covered in mud. Yells something in Chinese at us, then looks behind her and keeps running. We sit there stunned for a moment before my one friend starts after her. We follow the footsteps until the rain starts washing them away. We are on a mountain, so the trail becomes a waterfall, washing everything away. We were going faster than her, trying to catch up, but we couldn't find her. Decided to go back to camp and see if anyone else comes through. No one does. In the morning all traces of her footsteps are gone. Ask the next camp if they saw her and they said no. MFW, she probably fell at the mountain and died. My friends and I think she was some sort of sex trafficking escapee from one of the various lodges around.
Not necessarily strange, but we did see a super rare sight. I was in a group with 3 other people hiking back from Green Lake just north of Yosemite. The trail was pretty well maintained, but the brush all around was about stomach, chest height, so hard to see very far ahead. We rounded a curve heading downhill and I noticed a deer up ahead in the brush. I pointed it out to my friends since they don't go /up/ as much as I do. We stopped to look at the deer for a second and it gets spooked and takes off down the hill. Right after it takes off we see a brown blur jump out of the brush between the US and the deer, and it chases the deer down the hill. We ran into a mountain lion stalking the deer. It must have been only 20 feet away from me and I had no clue it was there. The deer probably didn't realize it was there either. Pretty spooky to think that they might have been watching me on the hikes I've done up there.
Doing a trail run towards dusk, but still light out. Trail I had been on plenty of times. Nobody else there that evening. Very weird feelings the entire time. Kept seeing things like shadowy figures out of the corner of my eye, like something was diagonally behind me. Anytime I was on one of the little wooden bridges, I would hear knocking right behind me. Strange breezes across my body. Pack of coyotes started howling like crazy. Got the fuck out of there.
I was camping in the Hunua Ranges in a section where very few people camp, and two adult men walked past my camp in the darkness one night. No light sources, not talking, walking about 5 paces apart. The terrain is tough even in the daylight, so night tramping would be near impossible at the pace they were keeping. I kept quiet because I had never had anything like that happen and was in shock. My assumption is that they were New Zealand Special Air Service, base 35 kilometers away, had night vision, and knew I was there. Been back a few times since in the same section and haven't seen anyone else at night.
I saw UFOs. Could also have been drones, but given they created no sound it made it so fucking odd. I was in the middle of a super quiet forest, so you should hear them drones. Anyways, UFOs, 3 in total, flew across me. Not just straight pattern, but moving around. They headed southwards, and had something like super bright searchlights that even blinded me when they went directly over me. And they must have been at least a kilometer above me. Just asking myself, who'd fly 3 drones with searchlights at night? There are night vision drones that'd do the job 10x as effective as searchlights on drones in the wilderness. Also, why 3?
Be me about 9 years old. Visit mom's family on countryside. Grandpa owns a big ass piece of land and a farm with lots of hills, and parts of it are deep in the woods. Been hiking and playing in woods with cousins since we were like 5, so he pretty much know it like the back of our hand. Deep in the forest we see what looks like a small stone castle coming out of a hillside. Looks old as fuck, has trace tree coming out of it in some parts. It's like 18 feet tall and has a tower that is a few foot taller, so maybe like 20 feet overall. Has what seems like an entrance about 3 feet tall, 2 feet wide. Looks very deep and dark. We are messing around it, and after a while we think this could collapse on top of us if we mess up. We go back and tell the rest of the cousins while Gramps is talking with my mom and dad in the kitchen. We agree to come back to it the next day with the rest of the cousins. Next day, we head back. Get to part of the woods where we saw it. There's the hill but no castle. Cousins get mad and say we made it all up. Return to the rest of the family. Go to Grandpa. Vaguely tell him that we saw a castle yesterday but couldn't find it now. He looks at me a bit concerned. Says the small one with stone walls and a tower? I just nod. He says when he first bought the land he hiked and camped all through it so he could get to it. Says he was walking along the riverside and saw it between some trees near the outline of the property. Kept on hiking and returned to the spot after 2 days with lanterns and tools to see if he can get inside of it. It's no longer there. Says he hasn't seen it since. Tell him this time it looked like it half inside of the hill. Looks concerned, tells me and the rest of the kids to keep it a secret, not mess with and walk away if we ever find it again. It's been 12 years since and I've never seen it again. What do you guys think it was? I once hiked along the northern length of the Ozark Trail. At mile 21 or so from the trailhead I started seeing unnatural colors through the leaves. It seemed that the trail was taking me right to it. As I climbed up the trail to the top of the hill, I could see ever more amounts of men. No women, just men. It was like a hippie camp. Technology was still there but it was all rudimentary. People had strung up tarps from one tree to another to make various canopies of different sizes. There were tents too. But it was just so incredibly odd to me. The camp could probably hold like 50 people or so, and yet I never saw a woman in it when I walked through. The settlers paid me no attention either. It was eerie.
Not going to lie, I made love to a tree before. About half a dozen times to be precise. I was a forest surveyor working in bush camps, 10 days on 4 days off. We'd go to whatever town was closest and go absolutely apeshit and fornicate anything that moves. There was only one woman in camp, the cook, and she looked like a Sasquatch with mustache and neck stubble and everything, so even though I was horny AF I still couldn't imagine even thinking about putting the moves on her. One night we were at a local bar and I was absolutely shit-faced and found myself taking to an old local drunk who used to be a feller. He laughed about our shifts and asked if I'd
met with the old Slippery Elm missus yet,
and I said I didn't know what he was talking about. He said you get the knothole of a fresh slippery elm log or standing tree and have your way with it. It's called slippery elm because underneath the bark is slippery as hell, and I guess some lonely loggers found out it makes a good organic fleshlight. I laughed and that was that. But fast forward day 7 or 8 of the next shift and I'm running Transex on my own and getting horny as all get out, thinking about past girls and all that. I run into a slippery elm with a perfect knothole and the guy's words came back. Fuck it, that's not true. I was looking at every slippery elm on my bearing for just the right knothole for about an hour or two and finally found one. Was it good? Brother, let's just say there are a few trees that have my eyes. Keg.